Whatever it is that you feel as a creator is your unique asset, take how you can apply that to the brand and benefit the brand, and make sure that is in your first 3 sentences. The internet is like an ever-giving source of UGC information. If you look at multiple sources from creators who are already providing information, it is an easy way to learn. I mean, that's how I learned.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Code Tribe podcast. Today, we have with us a very special guest, Abby Fridman. She has been with us on the Code Tribe podcast before, and that is very unique. I think, Abby, you're the first one I'm getting here for the second time, and that is because
that's like a little win.
It is a big win, and that's because I know last time we talked about so many tips and tricks for content creators and how to grow on social media, but I still feel like there was so much more to get out of it. So this time, Abby, I'm coming back and I want to talk to you more about brand collaborations, how to get them, how to have that perfect pitch, how to everything about them. What do you think?
Let's do it. I'm so excited. First of all, I can't believe this is my second time on the podcast. I'm super honored to be a part of that. And I can't wait to divulge all these little secrets. So let's get into it.
Let's get into it. For those who have not seen Abby's previous episode, definitely recommend check it out. But just so you know, Abby is a lifestyle, wellness, beauty content creator. She has almost 50K followers on TikTok, 1.2 million likes. That's insane. So she must be doing a good job. This is just for you to know who you're listening to because she deserves all the credit. Now, Abby, you have over 200 paid collaborations as a full-time content creator just in the last few months, from what I know. How do you get to that? Can you tell us a bit about your journey as a content creator? How did you get into this, and how did the growth look like for you?
Absolutely. So I'm going to spare the whole backstory that we discussed via the first episode, but getting into content creation, I believe it's very, very important to join each and every platform possible that you can. So not only just posting every single day consistently and showing off the different sides of yourself as a creator, but also being able to create a profile and a portfolio via every single platform that you can. So whether this ranges between platforms like Meta, TikTok, YouTube Shorts, Pinterest, which those are my tops, I'm on everything, and also creating a profile through different influencer apps. So these apps could be things like Incense, Billow, Popular Pays, Join Brands. So each and every time you find an app on the App Store, you can even type in influencer marketing or, UGC content creation, and there's all these apps. The good thing is that you're now getting yourself directly kind of like shown off to all of these brands. Each and every platform has its network of brands that you can connect to. So I think it's super important to create a profile, even if you're not using the app on a daily basis, because you never know who's going to see you. Same way with social media. You never know who's watching your content.
Makes sense. I feel like we're getting straight into it. So I love that, no sort of, we just go straight into it with those golden tips. Now, can you talk us through the typical process of collaborating with a brand from the initial contact, let's say, to the final agreement? Or what are those first steps?
Yeah, so if you are pitching a brand directly and you're not going through a platform, I'm going to spare the details on those because that's super easy to follow and the information's out there via each network. The hardest one that I would like to talk about would probably be pitching directly. So I have in my published digital e-guides on my Pensight actually an e-guide called the Perfect Pitch Package. So what it does is it actually teaches you how you can create a portfolio that captures a brand's attention, because nowadays, unfortunately, with social media circulating a lot of misinformation, a lot of very vague knowledge about how you should structure your portfolio, a lot of creators seem to overlook the details that brands actually look for, which along the way I've picked up on, having worked with so many different brands, what brands want to see in your portfolio, what kind of examples they want to look at, what kind of information you should put in there. So it teaches you how to structure that as well as I go into detail about how you can pitch the brand. So this is what I want to talk about here now, because I feel like it's so important to realize that when you are pitching a brand, you have to be able to provide value to them. So if you want to stick out to a large brand, we'll take Sephora, for example, right? And you want to collaborate with one of their brands or themselves, you have to stick out amongst hundreds of creators who are already pitching them. So how do you do that? So I like to think of yourself as a video. So when you watch an interesting video, you have your hook, your body, and your call to action. So in your initial email, since you're not visually captivating them, what is it that you can say that's going to make them want to open up your email? Every 2 days or so, it gets overwhelming when you have to go through all of them. The first thing you're going to look at is you're going to look at your little subtitle. That's like the headline, everything that speaks about it that's going to make you want to open the email. You're also going to look at grammar, and you're also going to look at, if you have a Gmail, it says marked as important, right? So I like to mark all my emails as important if I'm sending them out, and I like to make the headline a little interesting. So I'm not going to say create with Abby Fridman. They don't know who I am. They don't know, why should they create with me. I'm going to make a headline that's going to make them want to open it. So you kind of want to tailor this headline to the brand. This doesn't go across the board for all bases. If you're taking a beauty brand or something, when you're mailing them, you might say something that's native to their brand values. You might say something like a negative hook. So a negative hook would be something bad about the brand that's going to make them want to open it, potentially thinking that it's a customer service issue. Anything that you can say in a unique manner that's going to get the attention right away from the jump for them to open it. Because if they're sifting, they need to know that they're going to be able to get something of value or that they can help someone. That's number one. Number two would be having correct grammar. I cannot tell you the amount of times I've had brands email me and they spell my name wrong. They don't capitalize their letters. They don't have a professional email signature. That looks suspicious to me, and I'm like, who's really emailing me? I'm not going to go through the extra 10 steps to look up and verify your account to see if it's connected to a brand. I reject them and I just automatically delete. So those are things you want to look out for when writing like a basic email. You obviously want to appear professional. And the next thing is obviously your pitch, your actual pitch. Brands, just like people, are selfish. They want to know what you can do for them. And this is why I'm actually speaking about this on all my podcasts. Is like my favorite novel for creators is How to Win and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. He goes into details about how you can really speak to people in order to pique their interest and create those long-term relationships. And this really goes across the board for working with brands and companies and agencies and just getting people to understand how you can be an asset for them. So whatever it is that you feel as a creator is your unique asset, take how you can apply that to the brand and benefit the brand, and make sure that is in your first 3 sentences. Obviously introduce yourself properly, but you want to attach that. So the next step that I would recommend is obviously attaching your portfolio. I don't like to attach a file directly because I feel like sometimes that gets marked as spam. So what I do is I have a professional email signature with a picture. I have a professional headshot. And then I also created one where you can insert your portfolio and direct links to your social media channel. And I also teach you how to design that through Google in the Perfect Pitch package. And I feel like it's so important because if you're not sending a file through, you know you're not going to get marked to spam because there's no suspicious links or anything that their email might mark. And when they scroll down, they have the pleasure of seeing all of your social media networks to get to know what you're about. And you have your portfolio there. So it's not really something that should stand out. The thing that should stand out is your actual email pitch. That's what you want them to look at. What you say to them and how it can bring them value. Because if they see that they can really obtain value from working with you, they're most likely not going to need to look at that presentation of your work. They will brief your work, obviously, and that's going to be through your social media channels and your portfolio, but that's going to be after you've already captured their attention. So I think that's really the most important part. Moving forward down the line, your portfolio really does have to have these experienced and in-depth presentations of your previous work, and that goes hand in hand with how they might benefit from you.
The Code Tribe podcast is powered by Pensight. I want to take this opportunity to tell you more about Pensight and how much value it can provide you and your coaching business.
Pensight is an all-in-one platform for coaches and educators that enables you to quickly and easily build a highly credible page and sell your knowledge with one-to-one sessions, group coaching, courses, Q&As, digital products, and bundles. Payments, scheduling, video calling, client communications, and everything else is taken care of.
All it takes is 5 minutes to set up and it's free. It's the smartest way to kickstart your coaching business. Sign up to Pensight today at pensight.com.
Okay, and just to go back, because I know you gave us more details on the hook. In the body, you said, yes, do present yourself. You said, yes, do sort of capture their attention and show them what they can get out of this collaboration, what they have, the value that you have to offer. But what else should we include there? Like, how do you structure the information? What else should you include in there?
So the way that I would structure the email is I would definitely start out with that really catchy subtitle, and then I would automatically write this as a professional email. I'd be like, if you know the person's name, say you found their LinkedIn and you can directly mail them, you don't want to pitch and just be like, hey, Forever 21, that looks very unprofessional. You're not speaking to a single individual that writes the social media. You're speaking to only one group. So what you want to do is you want to narrow it down to their name. You want to say, hello, Helen K, or whatever it is the media representative is, comma, my name is Abby Fridman and I'm a full-time content creator. Here's how I think I can help your brand by doing X, Y, and Z. Then I like to go into showing them my experience, because sometimes content creators don't really think that experience is important, or you might not have any. So in the case that you might not have any, I would provide your assets, such as being able to say that I am skilled in X, Y, and Z. But if you are experienced and you do have that backpack of information and collaborations, you could say, I have worked with X, Y, and Z, allowing them to boost their ROA, return on ad spend, or ROI, which is return on investment, by doing X, Y, and Z. So you always want to take what you have done in the past that has worked successfully and show them that you can make it happen for them. But that's where you have to come up with the how. And that really is all individual based upon the person that's working with the brand and the brand itself. So I would definitely incorporate that in the first paragraph. You don't want to make it an essay. You want to make it enough where they feel as though they have to respond back to you to get to know more details. Start a conversation, and when you know that someone is writing back to you, just be as humane as possible, because you're speaking to a person. You're not talking to a robot. They want to see your personality across your email and your social media platforms. They want to know that you're a content creator who's capable of social networking and human interaction.
The $1,000,000 question is, how do you get the contacts for these brand deals? How do you do the reach out? Where do you find the emails, the profiles, and so on?
So this is actually a really great commonly asked question. In my pitch package, I shared how you can quickly do it via LinkedIn. You could even do it via Facebook. Sometimes if you find the business Facebook ad page, you can, see who it's run by. You could see who interacts with the page. LinkedIn is probably my number one recommendation, because that's where you can find, who the marketing manager is, who the influencer marketing manager is. Depending on the company, there's usually a large amount of employees that handle that section. So you can easily find their contact information if you just do a little research. You can even go to the brand directly on Instagram. Sometimes there will be a contact button at the bottom of their actual webpage. So that's an easy way to find who you can contact. And I always say, if all else fails, you can DM via Instagram. It is not my favorite way to do it. It is the very first thing I did start doing when I first started pitching brands. I would just slide right into their DMs. And out of 30 a day pitches where I would copy paste, my introduction of who I am and what I could do, obviously tailoring it to each brand, I would probably get about 5 to 10 responses. So it does work, but it's not as professional as going through the depth of trying to get their email from LinkedIn and then putting up a whole direct communication with them.
And can you tell us again the sort of titles we should look for on LinkedIn when we search for the people we want to target?
Yeah, I often look for the marketing manager or the influencer marketing manager. Those are really just the two sections that you have to go under, or job titles rather, because they are the people who are usually in charge of the hiring process for their content creation.
And in terms of emails, how do you access their emails?
So if you go on their LinkedIn and you see that their profile is under that job title, their contacts will most likely be on their profile. So even if it's not at the brand contact because they have their own profile, you can still email them directly and say, hey, I did some research and I found that you happen to be in conglomeration with this brand. I would really love to show you how I can benefit this brand by working with you. And then you would go forth to obviously explain your pitch.
Would you say that, in the beginning stages of being a content creator, it's us, the creators, who have to do the reach out? It's us who have to reach out to brands and try to convince them that we're worth the chance, we're worth the collaboration. So the question then is, how do you sort of establish some sort of credibility when you don't have that previous experience?
Okay, so it's very different for social media sponsorships versus UGC. So if you're a UGC creator, you don't have to have any followers. You would just have to have a solid portfolio with accurate examples following the best sales practices, which I always recommend. Like, if you're getting into this field, please do your research, because some UGC creators will come up with a portfolio where they have examples of just product photography, which is not UGC. It looks pretty, but it doesn't signify user-generated content. Or they'll have examples of themselves unboxing a product. And as pretty as your lighting may be or the quality of the video, you're not showing any value in your content. A video of someone unboxing a product is not going to convert a consumer to buying. So you want to follow the best sales practices as a creator. Show things that may actually help a brand convert during an ad or ad boosting the content. And that would be a great example. So if you have no brand collaborations, what I like to tell people that I train is you can create a portfolio where you say, my dream brands would be, right? And you create that section, because on the first page of my portfolio, I like to have the brands that I worked with in the past, right? But when I didn't, I just showed off my dream brands that I feel like I would love to work with. And I made examples of random products in my house that I already use and I already love using. And I made that my portfolio pitch. So you can use things that you already have in your lifestyle. It doesn't need to be anything fancy. It could be something as simple as a potted plant. It could literally be anything, a hair comb. And you just have to sell the bleep out of it, okay? You have to know how to put that out on camera with your personality and make someone want to buy it. And that's really what UGC is. That really is why ads are used, right? They're used to convert people who are watching to buying. So that would be for the UGC category. And then for the influencer sponsored posts, your social media, and this goes across the board because nowadays there's so much competition in UGC that if you do have that social media profile, it makes you stand out as a UGC creator. So your social media is basically like a live portfolio / resume. A brand can go back, they can follow you for a little while, they can watch your metrics, they could see how your content performs and what kind of content you put out. And they could reach out to you themselves and say, I really like what you've been doing and we really want to work with you. Because that's happened to me so many times. Which, by the way, that is the key to growing, is I would definitely recommend, no matter what type of creator you are, to put your work out on social media. And that's when you'll get the sponsored deals and the UGC and everything else down the line. Because if they truly like your content and you're growing in quality and you're showing off the skills, they'll automatically see that.
Got it. And just to be clear, so when you say the difference in the end between UGC and influencer sponsored content is what?
So UGC is something that you do not have to post on your social media. It is something that you create and the brand buys, and they can use that rather via organic or ad boosted posting. So UGC is, you're not really required to have followers because you're not posting anything. However, sponsored posts and influencing is when you get a sponsored brand deal and you now have to post that content so it's exposed to your followers, and then it might be whitelisted or dark listed. That's when it's run as an ad. Whitelisting is when they use your actual physical name and run it through the ad on social media. But dark listing is when they run it through your name, but it doesn't appear on your social media. But your name still does on the ad. So it's like, it's just using your name, a fancy word.
Interesting. I did not know that. And in terms of the portfolio, I know we mentioned it a couple of times, but what are some key points that we should know there in terms of structuring? You mentioned, show, depending on your level, show either your ideal brands you want to work with or the brands you already worked with. What else? Should we include some sort of previous results, metrics? What are some of those key components?
So if you're an influencer or you do any type of social media influencing, definitely include your metrics. So I like to include my metrics closer to the end because after I present all my content, I want them to see how many followers I have, what my demographic is, because If a brand is selling beauty products that's like very tailored to, say, one type of age group or category, you want that to match with your metrics, right? I'm not going to go and promote something that's not going to resonate with my audience. So you want that to be there so they can understand how your analytics match up with their goals. So that's very important for influencing. If you're a UGC creator and you're strictly focused on UGC, you do not have to have your metrics, because that has nothing to do with influencing, because at the end of the day, you're not posting the content. But what I would recommend is seeing if you can reach out to brands that you have already worked with, if you are an experienced creator, and seeing if they can provide metrics for the work that you've done for them. So seeing how the post performs, how many conversions they get, how many clicks, how many scroll stoppers, all of that is super valuable information for other brands. They want to see how your previous work has performed. So with me, for example, because my portfolio is out there, a lot of my clients will like to go and look at my certain work, right? But you have to make it based on who you are as a person. So for myself, because I do both categories, I do have my metrics closer to the end, but you can actually track a lot of how my work performs via other channels, because I tend to find them and then I repost them on my social media under like my career category. So if someone really did some digging on who I am, they could easily see the work I've done in UGC without me having to provide analytics. Also, if my analytics are there through social media, they're seeing how my social media performs as a creator anyways. So I wouldn't need to provide like double metrics, if that makes sense. It's kind of like kill two birds with one stone. And then the next step I would say is definitely have those high performance examples. You want to have examples where you're speaking to the camera or have dynamic mixed variation, because you want them to see that you're able to be versatile. So like your editing does not have to be top notch, because UGC is really like real life person perspective, but you do have to know how to, have that quality content, have that scroll stopper, have that main chunk of information as the body that provides value to the consumer, and then the call to action, which is, why should we purchase this? How can we go purchase this? Where do I find it?
And what are some of these metrics that we should focus on? Like, what should we show at the end of the day?
I always like to update mine monthly, because I like to show off the engagement rate. If I grew in followers, which tends to happen a lot if you're consistently posting, I like to show the growth rate. I also like to show my audience age groups, demographics, and location. So they tend to look for that. If a company is based in a certain area and they're getting a lot of traction in New York, they might want to hire an influencer who's in LA so they can bring their brand more brand awareness in LA. So location definitely matters. Definitely have your location, not just in your metrics, but have your location audience demographic too. That's another thing I wanted to mention that I completely just went over the top of my head, is you want to have contact emails. If you are an influencer, have all your social media in one spot. Like I use my Pensight. That's my landing page. I have my Pensight like first, front and center. Connect with me here, and it brings them to that landing page. I want them to see everything at a one-stop shop. So it's all organized. They're not struggling to find where they can find more information on me. It's all there. And you want to make sure that even if you haven't created a landing page, you have those important social media channels. You have that email contact, because sometimes they're going to be like, okay, well, she pitched me, but I forgot her email, but I opened her portfolio a week ago. Let me go back and click on the email. You know what I'm saying? It just gets muddy. Like, have all the contact information there so they can reach out to you again.
Couldn't agree more. And since we're talking about this, I'm also curious. We have these metrics that will show our performance to brands, but how can creators also emphasize those unique selling points, or what makes them different? How can they put that into words, or how can they showcase that?
So are you asking how they can take their talents and showcase that? Or are you asking how they can take those skills and put them into the portfolio?
I think more like their talents, or like why are they different from all the others?
So that's where it gets a little bit tricky, because as individuals, right, as creators, we want to be seen as the top creators. We want to be seen as the most high performance, like hire me, pick me, right? So that depends on the person. This is where it goes hand in hand with the life coaching thing that I used to do in the past, but it's, you want to sit down and you want to write a list of your strengths and weaknesses. You want to get to know yourself as an individual and figure out what is your value in life and to the world. My favorite writing exercise that I used to do when I felt like I needed to like level up in life was I would sit down and I would write all the things I hated about myself. And then right next to that aisle, I would rewrite them as I love them in a positive manner. So if I said to myself, I hate how I'm shy, right? I would rewrite that. I love how outgoing I am. So I would take all my negative traits and I would find a way to convert the dialect and change my internal language to now perceive it in a different way. And even if it wasn't true at the time, it did a massive emotional shift on my mindset. And I was able to now conquer those things as like the most outgoing extroverted person. And you can take the things that you're not necessarily good at or the things that you want to improve upon and change them all by changing the way that you speak to yourself. And I will always stand by this because if you can believe it, you can achieve it. So this goes across the board in any career. This doesn't even, just apply to content creators. But I can't tell you what to write because I don't necessarily know what you're good at. You need to pick something out about you that you are so confident makes you stand out that you can now show off to the brand. So for myself, this would be the fact that I know I'm super confident speaking in front of a camera, right? But I'm not going to write that down to them because everyone else is going to say it. I would rather show this trait through my examples and just show them how I perform on camera in those videos. But what I am going to tell them is that I actually have over 7 years of sales experience because my first job ever was in sales. And then my next job after that was in sales. And I want to show them that even though I'm a creator, my past experience comes from having sales experience. So as opposed to someone who's not experienced in sales, whether or not you're good at it, I think that's a value prop to who I am as a person, and that might be useful for a brand. As people, we all have our individual stories, so it's up to you to find what that individual trait is that's going to make you stand out, because you never know how it's going to apply to that brand.
The question I want to ask you is, how can content creators determine their rates for brand collaborations? Like how can they set up the prices they want to work for?
So here's a very important thing that I want all creators to remember is never, ever, ever, ever include your rates inside of your portfolio. Ever. Do not make it accessible to the brand until the brand gives you a budget. So learning negotiation skills within this field is very important because each and every brand has a different marketing budget. So when I work with my clients, right, and they want to get an estimate of their rates, I go by metrics, right? And I do have them create a rate card, but I never want them to include it because if a brand has a budget of $1,500, but your rate card says that you're charging $300 for this type of work, you are at a huge disadvantage because these brands are ready to pay. They're ready to pay. They have that marketing budget, and once it surpasses a year, usually because they get a year's time, if that budget is not used, sometimes it doesn't go into next year. So it has to get used up. That's at least what I've learned from another source. But either way, you want to make sure that, yes, you have your maximum acceptance. Like I like to have it as like benchmarks, right? So as a UGC creator, the range for UGC concepts usually falls between $110 to $350 per 130-second concept. And then you obviously work on discount codes and packages. The more packages you offer, the better it is for you because you're making it more accessible to the brand to want to buy more content for that better value. So if you think of yourself as setting up like a store discount system, it's like buy 3, get 1 free. You know what I'm saying? So the more you provide of that, the better it is in terms of you having a higher chance at selling. You want to kind of follow the estimate benchmark based on your experience, right? So if a brand is very, very stubborn and they're not giving you their marketing budget and they want to know how much you're charging, that's when you would obviously show that rate card. And you kind of should mark yourself as someone who's either intermediate, medium experienced, and then highly experienced. So once you get to highly experienced, you can shift your rates to be on the higher side. And I've had brands tell me like, oh, that's ridiculous pricing. I have another creator doing it for 50. I'm like, okay, bye, go hire them, because at this point, when you get to a point in your career where you now have so many inbounds and so many returning clients, you kind of just don't even bat an eye. You're like, all right, don't accept my rates. You're not worth my time. But if you get to a point where you're just starting out, I would definitely follow suit of having maybe not such higher rates because you want to build up that portfolio and then down the line increase your rates when you already know that you can, when you can increase a brand's ROI, when you know that you have that return on ad spend, when you know your ads are performing well. It is a broad field, which is unfortunate, but that's how it would be for UGC because everyone likes to structure it their own way. A lot of people like to charge for usage rights, which I do recommend. However, there is a downside. So if you charge for usage rights, it gets muddy in a sense where you now have to follow up every month and make sure that they're paying you. You also have to make sure that a lot of times when you're a UGC creator, you will get a lot of the small businesses. So small businesses don't really want to pay for usage rights because they want to buy your video and they want to use it for however long they want without having to worry about that follow-up payment. So that's when you have to establish a flat rate if you decide not to go down that usage rate way. And that's when you might want to charge a little bit higher because you know that they're going to get, usage rates in perpetuity. And in perpetuity means they have it forever. So if you establish a rate that you're comfortable with, stand by it, but never offer up your pricing first because you never know what they might offer you. And this ranges between every brand.
And when you said pay for usage rights, what's that?
So usage rates is when they would be using the video across as an ad across all platforms or any platform, right? So I'm going to take TikTok, for example, right? TikTok gives you about 30-day ad boosting via Spark ads. They give you, I think, 6 months or they give you a year. So you get like different time blocks of how long they can run the ad. So if they're putting ad spend behind your video and the video is selling, they're making money off of your video if they just bought it, for one flat rate. Some creators will like to take advantage of the fact that they're now using it for a certain amount of time as a paid ad, and they're going to charge them for usage rates. So if they're using it as an ad for a month, you might charge them about 30% of the initial cost added on, and then another 30% for however long they're going during this time span of running the ad. This usually only works for when they're using it as an ad, not for organic posting, because if there's ad spend behind it, you want to reap the benefits of it having to sit and run as an ad rather than just be posted organically. So it is an advantage to the creator, but a lot of brands nowadays are now starting to buy content where they're not paying for usage rates. So they might decline you or they might not want to work with you because of the disadvantage and the process really of spending usage rates.
Okay, super interesting to know. I know you mentioned, different price points for different levels of expertise. Can you give us a big picture of those price points for entry level, medium experience, and very experienced creator?
Yeah, so we're going to take, for example, one 30-second concept. It's going to be video form where they have to speak to the camera and incorporate dynamic scenes because this is like the most common type of video for UGC. So this is going to be where the lowest I've ever seen it be was $50. That's like a complete no-go for me. That's usually something that's offered from platforms. So again, up to anyone that wants to accept, you are the value that you create for yourself. So it's whatever you're comfortable with. But I've seen it go as low as $50 to $120 for like entry level for someone who has no experience. I think that is a great starting point because if you're in a competing market of people who have very high pricing, a brand who doesn't have that big marketing budget might want to give you the chance because your rates are much lower. So it's just really about like demand, supply and demand. Can you, supply their demand? So the next for medium entry, I would definitely say is priced at a range of anywhere from $110 to $180, $200 for that one concept. And then moving forward, I've seen a lot of UGC creators charge anywhere between $280 to $500 for that concept. Now, here's where I come in as an experienced creator. I would rather keep my rates happy where I'm at. For that one concept, I charge $250. That's my personal rate. Now, while that falls in the medium experience category, I like to have it low as an advantage to myself where now I'm no longer competing with the creators who want $500 for that video. If I want to charge for usage rights because the brand proposes a payment for usage rights, sure, go ahead. I will charge you 30% of that initial cost for every month running the ad. If it's a small business and really, really want to work with me because they know I'm an experienced creator and they agree to that rate, that's the rate I'm accepting. Personally, it all depends on the brand. It all depends on how much work they want from you. And it all depends on whether or not they're going to be running it as an ad, using it for organic posting. What's the value in this content? How can we benefit each other? So you really always want to keep an open mind as well and see and brief what they want you to do. And if you're happy with the rate that they're going to pay you for that.
Super interesting to know this. So this was about UGC. What about sponsor post in terms of, the number of followers / engagement that a profile has?
So a lot of influencers or online creators that like sponsored posts have so much confusion about this rather. So there's plenty of calculators available online actually. I like to use the one where it's just each potential follower for organic posting is $1 value. Or I can't math right now. Wow, my brain is broken. So anyways, I have almost 50,000 followers on TikTok, right? So my rate for one TikTok post ranging between 30 seconds to a minute, I charge 480. So I think I'm at like 47,900 to be exact, or somewhere around that estimate range. You want to kind of just convert that number to the hundreds. That's where I bring it at. Now, here's where sponsored posts, it definitely gets interesting because most of the time they're going to whitelist your content or they're going to run it as an ad. Very, very seldom they'll just let it sit on your profile because that to them is kind of like a waste of a marketing budget. For my channel, for posting it with my name and creating the content for that amount of followers, that would be 480, right? Then we have the ad boosting. So if they are paying ad spend behind it, I am definitely charging them for the usage rights, because they're going to be putting in a lot of money running that as an ad. And as we know, TikTok is one of the biggest outreach platforms. So that tends to convert really, really well. So I've had brands that have gotten like thousands upon thousands of dollars just from running my ad for about 6 months. So it would be super unfair to me if as a creator, I'm only getting paid $480, but they're reaping the benefits of like $20,000 to $30,000 off of just one video. It really, like I said, it depends on the brand because they might lowball you. They always lowball you. I mean, let's be honest. That's usually how it works. Or they might really just be straight up honest with you and tell you, this is our budget here. How much would you accept? And you could take it from there. So I wouldn't take my word for it on the calculations because you can find plenty of calculations online. Some of them use engagement metrics. Some brands actually that reach out to you will already know what an estimate of paying you is because they have a chart of what to look for and how much they can offer you. It gets messy because that chart can be based upon just their marketing budget, and it still won't be matching your engagement metrics. So you kind of just have to be aware of what the standard rates are because they are always changing. So my best piece of advice for a creator who wants to know is I would go online, even on a platform like TikTok, and I would see what creators are charging, because a lot of creators would put that information out there for you to see. Not that comparing yourself is good, but getting a ballpark estimate of knowing how these rates are changing in the creator community is important. So that's one. And two, use a calculator online. There's definitely a lot of them available where you can find your metrics. And I think for platforms like TikTok that are outreach platforms, you can use that conversion to kind of, convert to the hundreds. So if you're at almost 48,000 followers, that's 480. If you're at 50,000, that's 500, and so on.
And now, because we mentioned this idea of, brands coming in with their offers and their prices, do you have any tips for negotiating on the offers?
Yeah, so there's been plenty of times where I turned a $150 proposal into a $700 proposal. And it's crazy because it is possible. I've had gifted collaborations turn into paid ones. And it all goes back to knowing your value and standing your ground. If a brand really, really wants to work with you, first of all, they are always going to reach out and they're never going to want to spend money. That's just how it goes. They always want to play their field and see what kind of response they're getting. And most of the time, people are unfortunately pushovers and they allow themselves to just be taken advantage of and provide all of this valuable content for zilch. So what you want to do is really just start understanding your value and start speaking highly on it. I'm a little bit of aggressive when it comes to negotiating. I will just be like, I'm sorry, but based on the amount of deliverables that you're asking for, based on my social media metrics, based on everything that I'm going to be able to provide you and the time that it takes to complete this project, I can't accept your value because I already have clients who I'm prioritizing who are willing to pay that budget. So oftentimes it's not that you want to compare them to another client, but you do want to make it clear that you are booked and that you are busy. Even if you're not, just fake it till you make it, You want to make it clear that you do have those brands that are willing to pay because your content is quality. Some emails I look at, and if I see in the first 3 sentences, they're like, gifted, join this affiliate program. I'm like, delete. It's not even worth my time answering because I know what their response is going to be. But there are times where I've received a brand that I really, really like the product or I like the brand values and they try to do a gifted thing. And I pitch myself, I'm like, I know unfortunately at this time you're only offering a gifted or exchange-based collaboration. And as much as I would love to do XYZ for you because I'm skilled in XYZ, I can't accept because I'm at capacity for this month with my higher paying clients. I would love for you to keep me in mind if your marketing budget changes or we're able to meet in the middle where we can both mutually benefit each other. And, you kind of just have to play the field and see what they come back with, but you always want to show them how you can give them that value. Because if from the jump they're being like, oh, we want you for our team because we love your content, and you just say, well, I'm sorry, but I don't work for free, they're going to be like, okay, well, screw you. I don't need you. I have all these other influencers. You have to show them that you won't work for free because you're going to give them XYZ, and that's the response that usually gets me what I want. It's me telling them, well, okay, well, here's how I can benefit you. Why wouldn't you want to pay me? So I think that's what it comes down to.
So just to summarize, what are the main things that you're highlighting when you're trying to negotiate your offer?
I would highlight, once again, your skills, your value to the brand specifically. Say, for example, it's an anti-aging product, correct? You want to highlight your video concept idea for them and reiterate them, or just pitch an idea really quickly. And if they think it's a really, really good idea that's going to help them grow, they're going to want to pay you to create that idea. You don't want to give away too many details, though, because you don't want them to walk away and use that idea. But you do want to pique their interest in, how you can help them. So it's definitely highlighting your skills and why they should pay you. It's highlighting your experience, and it's highlighting how you can provide that value. And again, standing your ground. Standing your ground is super, super important. When I say that I can't accept their deal, I don't even apologize. I don't say I'm sorry. I think it's just one of those very important things in dialect because they don't want to play on your guilt. A lot of people who are intelligent will learn how to play on emotions, and that's all that negotiation is. It's playing on emotion, and just as sales is. So you want to be firm and you want to say, unfortunately, at this time, I cannot accept any gifted or exchange-based campaigns because I'm at capacity. However, if any paid opportunities do appear, I would love to do this for you. It's all in your wording. It's all about how you can make yourself seem professional and kind, but also firm. Because there's a line between being an a-hole and there's a line between being a professional in your field. Excuse my French,
Totally makes sense. Now, because we're getting close to the end of the episode, I have just time for 2 more questions. Unfortunately, I will stay with you for hours, but that's the unfortunate part, that I cannot stay for hours and hours and hours and hours. But we're trying to get as much as we can in this 1 hour that we have together. Now, the question I want to ask you is, what's the importance of building sort of that long-term brand relationships, like having this long-term idea in mind when you collaborate with a brand?
Yeah, so if you genuinely like a brand, it should be no problem for you to want to work with them long term. And if you do, that's the ultimate goal, because then you don't have to worry about pitching yourself to new brands. So if you establish that long-term relationship, they're going to keep coming back to keep paying you, and you guys know exactly how you want to deliver. You guys know exactly how the content performs. You know exactly what to expect from each other, and it just makes it flow a lot easier.
And how does it go? Like, when do you mention this? At the beginning of a collab, after you've done your first collab, or how does it go?
So normally in my pitch, I do like to mention at the end, I'm like, if I'm introducing myself, right, and I want them to tell me that they have a certain campaign that they can match me for, because most of the time they need to have a campaign running for them to hire you. So you also want to make sure that you establish to them that you are capable of doing either UGC, sponsored post, long-term campaigns, or photography. You just give them like a kind of like quick briefing of your talents, which I would also put in your portfolio. I have a section which tells people what I offer in my services. So you might offer more than one thing, so that's definitely something to look into. But I like to tell them, if you do have any long-term opportunities, I would love to. And most of the time, you don't have to ask for it. They'll just come back and want to work with you based off how your first job went with them. I've had clients that I actually worked with for a one-time UGC deal, and they figured out that I have social media. So they now saw my social media. They came back to me like a month later. And this is one of my like 6-month contract clients. This is like a very long contract for at least the field of content creation. They've come back to me and said, well, we really, really like how your UGC went. We want to try doing it through your platform as well. So I've tried that with them, and they were like, you know what? We figured out we're going to give you an allocated budget where now we're going to be paying you to give us X amount of videos per month for 6 months because we really love your personality. We don't think it's for your channel because we did the trial and error, but it did perform really well on ours. So that's what I ended up with. They kind of explore their own possibilities, and they came back to me because they just liked who I am as a creator, and they saw that it was really fit for their brand. So next thing you know, I now have a consistent income coming in because I'm using that same quality, same personality, and same brand value long term. And that's happened with over 10 clients in the last few weeks for me. Like, I've had a lot of returning clients. And it'll range. It'll range from having them give you the campaigns that they have, because some of them only operate on campaign based. Some of them need you to create content for their social media consistently. Some of them need you to create an ad once in a blue moon. And it depends on how they structure their business. It has nothing to do with you, really. But when they return back to you for their next job, for when they need you, it speaks volumes.
I love that, and I'm very happy for you.
Thank you. It's been a wild ride. It really has.
A wild ride, and it's all about the journey in the end, isn't it?
It is. It
Now,
is. I love it.
also super important, what legal considerations should content creators be aware of?
So I would absolutely see if you can get a lawyer approved contract. For people who don't want to go to a lawyer and spend money, I'm going to give you a little life hack. This is not legal advice. Do not follow it. If you don't feel comfortable, definitely go and get a lawyer approved contract. But when I was tight on money and I didn't want to go do that, I took the contract of the biggest brand that I worked with, the most professional looking contract. And I read all my contracts. I always, I don't care if they're 20 pages or 30 pages. I will answer you in 3 business days if I have to. But I'm going to read the whole contract. Because sometimes brands will sneak little things in there that screw you over, and you want to make sure you always read it. So I took a contract template that was provided to me, and I just switched it up to be my own, and that became my legal New York State law approved contract. And as you become a creator, you're going to see a lot of different contracts, and some of them are so unprofessional. It blows my mind how such big businesses have such a crappy contract, but it is so important. When you have that legally binding document where you have a signature and you know you're going to receive your pay, you know you're going to receive compensation, the terms are completely up to you. Like, if a brand does not provide a contract for me and I have to provide my own, I make sure that I have a late fee. I make sure that I have a certain time allotted for them to pay me, to guarantee payment. I make sure that there's an indemnity clause, which is also very important for creators. So what an indemnity clause is if a brand gets sued, say if it's food, right? Or say if it's a skincare product that gets recalled, you might be in danger because they ran your ad and your ad only, and now you are subject to their penalties legally. And that is in so many contracts that creators don't even read. So if a brand sends me a contract where the indemnity clause is now placed on me and I'm responsible for their legal liabilities because the viewer sued them but they saw my video, I won't accept the job. Because if you're getting sued for like millions or hundreds and thousands of dollars, how are you supposed to avoid that as a creator if you don't have insurance or if you're not an LLC? So that's just a risk that I don't want to. I will never ever accept that because I just don't want to be liable for that kind of cost and claim. And in my clause, it says that if there is a scandal, if there is a lawsuit, the contract is now void and they no longer hold ownership to my content. I don't want them using my name or face if there's some sort of defamation lawsuit going on. So you always want to make sure that you read the contract, that you have the indemnity clause, that you're protected as the creator, because people will sue for crazy things and you never ever want to be held liable.
That's insane. Like, I'm so happy you mentioned this. I had no idea, and I bet many of those listening didn't know either. So thank you so much for sharing. Now, the last question that I want to ask you today is, what KPIs, metrics should we track to measure the success of our collaborations?
Yeah, so when you're a UGC creator, it's a little bit more difficult because you have to obtain those metrics from the brand. Sometimes I like to stalk the brand's social media network channels, and I like to click on the video to see how many comments, how many shares, how many likes it has. Those are very clear visual descriptors of engagement and the metrics that you should keep an eye out for. But if you're running an ad through Facebook Marketplace, I believe you can access this through Meta Business Suite. If it's being run through your profile, you can actually see its metrics. So it'll tell you the retention time. It'll tell you how long the viewer stayed to watch the video. And those are all very key, important descriptors of how your content performs, because if your retention time was only like 2 seconds, you lost them in the hook. And that means you need to work on your hook. If you lost them in the middle, that means the way that you're presenting your value of the product to your audience it's a little muddy. It could use some work, right? Or perhaps your visual dynamic scenery was not as engaging as it should have been. Maybe your video was a little boring, right? Or how many people actually visited the website after they watched the video? Was your call to action good enough? So that key of watching when people, stay through the video or where they stop is super important. That's more of something for you to reflect on. You don't want to put your direct KPIs or your engagement metrics through certain collaborations visually. You want to maybe be able to provide those if the brand does ask through past examples, but you do want to have like those broad metrics such as followers, audience demographics, and you can even link a post that you're running as an ad, which I've done in the past. That's a great example. And you can do the direct link to the actual video and it'll take them straight to the video. They can look at it themselves.
Makes sense. Now, Abby, we shared so much information today, such valuable information today, but I can't stop to think that some of us listening might feel a bit overwhelmed with this amount of information received. Any tips for us, to take it easy?
Absolutely. It's a long journey. It can happen quickly, for sure. And it happens when you put in patience and you kind of like you can't eat the whole elephant, You have to knock out little goals one step at a time, right? So when you're first starting out, make a little to-do list or a goal list and write to yourself, okay, first I want to accomplish my portfolio, but wait a minute, I don't have examples. Let me film those good examples. Let me get to know what the good best practice sales examples are. Let me try to recreate some of them or create my own concepts and then put that in my portfolio. So that's, step 1 and 2. Step 3 is the posting. I'm so for being able to put out your UGC examples as a UGC creator on social media. It gives you much more inbounds. It gives you so much more outreach. As a creator, when you're on social media and you're trying to specialize in UGC, you never know what kind of brand is going to come across your content and want to work with you. So start building those channels if you haven't already. And if you are not already on different social media platforms and apps for influencers, get on them because you are robbing yourself of that audience access. So get on everything. Get on everything. And then as you've accomplished those 4 steps, start to really stay updated with the current information in the community. Like, I know that I'm not personally a user of Twitter or X, whatever that platform is called now. I don't really like using it as much as I like to use TikTok for my information because I feel like that's always updating and the search engine is huge. The internet is like an ever-giving source of UGC information. If you look at multiple sources from creators who are already providing information, it is an easy way to learn. I mean, that's how I learned. And even if the information is not accurate, you can always stay up to date by researching and getting into that community. So the UGC community is super welcoming and they do put a lot of information out there, as well as I have put a lot of information on my platforms. So it's there. Just get to familiarize yourself with, look at examples. You can even go into the Facebook ads library and look at what examples are top performing and low performing. So just familiarize yourself with the field. None of us are perfect in the field. We're always growing because technology always develops and audiences always get smarter. So just figure out what it is that makes you stand out and utilize that.
Absolutely love that. Now, Abby, this has been fantastic. Thank you so much for an incredible episode. Can you share with us where can we find you? Where can we follow you? How can we work with you?
Absolutely. So my social media platforms are ABBYFRIDMAN on everything. So Abby Fridman is where you can find me. I am on Instagram, I am on TikTok, I am on YouTube Shorts, I am on Pinterest, and I am on Pensight. And on my Pensight, I do offer one-on-one coaching sessions. I do have digital guides that make it easier for creators to start their journey and even get into content creation. So my DMs are also open.
Love that. So you heard Abby. If this episode was helpful in any way, and I'm sure it was since you're still here, please do go follow her. She posts incredible content out there, lots of inspo for you if you're interested into UGC, and definitely check out, her digital products and even consider working with her. Look how much she knows. It's insane. I feel like she could be talking for hours and hours, and there will still be more
I feel
to
like
talk
I could
about.
too. I want to be on
Yeah,
stage
she
one
is
day.
just amazing. Is this, the point where we say maybe we're gonna meet for the third podcast episode?
Maybe. That would be awesome.
Anyway, this was really, really, really great, Abby. Any last words for our audience today?
I'm going to finish off with fake it till you make it and believe in yourself. That's all I have to say.
Fake it till you make it and believe in yourself. You heard, ladies and gentlemen. That is the lesson of the day, of the night. Abby, thank you so much, dear audience. Thank you so much for sticking till the end. And see you all to the next episode of the Coach Tribe podcast. Have a good one. Hope you enjoyed this episode.
We'll be releasing every Wednesday, so make sure to
Subscribe
and rate us 5 stars where you're listening to this show to give others a chance to discover it too.